Hare Krishna. Welcome to Youth Jam. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Rajarath Bhavana. Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
Bhaktarav. Hare Krishna Saki Vrinda. Hare Krishna Jiya. Enigma Vishwas. Hare Krishna. Ishika's back. Fantastic part. Haribo. Anapayani Bhakti's here. Kapil is everywhere.
Yeah,
Good to see you again. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
How's everybody? Kapil, how are you?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I'm a little sick. I just fell sick yesterday. But otherwise I'm good.
Well, I hope you feel better soon.
Yeah, good to see you, Maharaj.
It's something going around. Ishika, all good?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Good. Hare Krishna. Great to have you here, Part. Well, Brajaras Bhavana and Anapayani Bhakti, please feel free to start at any time.
Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to Youth Jam. Thank you all for coming this week. Today's agenda, of course, we'll start with our prayer as usual, and then we'll be doing our chad, and then doing some reading after that as well. And we have a special little workshop, last like seminar over here with Maharaj, and we'll be talking about doubts and how doubts can lead us on the perfect path. And then after that, we'll have a breakout room discussion as well, like last week, where we can all get into groups and discuss, and then come back to the main room and wrap things up. And so we can get started with the prayer. I'll send the prayer format in just a sec. But if anyone wants to nominate someone else, please feel free to do so. And if that is seconded, then that person will be giving the prayer today. Any nominations? Okay, we have Tulsi's nomination for Saki Vrinda, or rather Tunga Vidya. We got 2 seconds. Okay, Saki Vrinda, you're up.
My dear Shishi Lakshmi Nrsingadit, if you so desire, please let this Yushan be successful, and please let us incorporate the many transcendental points that we learned today so that we can serve you better. Thank you for considering my request. Om Tat Sat.
Thank you for that wonderful prayer, Saki Vrinda. Now I'll hand it over to you, Maharaj.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure. Well, I heard you say that we get to do our Chad, so that's kind of a easy one. Is everyone up for that? Let's try it out. It's a good way to catch momentum in life. If all else fails, read Bhagavad Gita. And Anapayani Bhakti, why don't you organize the chanting and the reading?
All right. Is anyone interested in helping in reciting the Sanskrit verses? If so, we'll do 10 each, and I think that'll have 3 people raising their hands. So for anyone who enjoys reciting Sanskrit, please raise your hand. I see Manya, Kapil, and I can go ahead now. Marge, please. So he'll be the 3rd. So yeah, please get started. श्रीभगवानुवाच मया आसक्तमनः पार्थ योगं युञ्जन्मदाश्रयः असंशयं समग्रं मां यथा ज्ञास्यसि तच्छृणु ज्ञानं तेऽहं सविज्ञानम् इदं वक्ष्यामि शेषतः यज्ञात्वा नेह भूयो न्यच् ज्ञातव्यम् अवशिष्यते मनुष्याणां सहस्रेषु कश्चिद् यतति सिद्धये यततामपि सिद्धानां कश्चिन्मां वेति तत्त्वतः भूमिरापो नलो वायु कं मनो बुद्धिरेव च अहङ्कार भिन्नप्रकृतिरष्टधा अपरयमितस्त्वन्यं प्रकृतिं विद्धि मे परां जीवभूतं महाबाहो ययेदं धार्यते जगत् एतद्योनीनि भूतानि सर्वाणीत्युपधारय अहं कृत्स्नस्य जगतः प्रभवप्रलयस्तथा मत्तः परतरं नान्यत् किञ्चित् अस्ति धनञ्जय मयि सर्वमिदं प्रोतं सूत्रे मणिगणा इव रसोऽहम् अप्सु कौन्तेय प्रभास्मि शशिसूर्ययो प्रणवः सर्ववेदेषु शब्दखे पौरुषं ऋषु पुण्यो गन्धपृथिव्यं च तेजश्चास्मि विभावसो जीवनं सर्वभूतेषु तपश्चास्मि तपस्विषु बीजं मां सर्वभूतानां विद्धि पार्थ सनातनं बुद्धिर्बुद्धिमतामस्मि तेजस्तेजस्विनामहम्
बलं बलवतां चाहं कामरागविवर्जितं धर्माविरुद्धो भूतेषु कामोऽस्मि भरतर्षभ ये चैव सात्विका भावा राजसास्तामसाश्च ये मत्त एवेति तान् विधि न त्वहं तेषु ते मयि त्रिभिर्गुणमयैर्भावैरेवि सर्वम् इदं जगत् मोहितं नाभिजानाति मामेव्य परम् अव्ययम् देवी है ईश गुणमयी मम माया दुरत्यया मामेव ये प्रपद्यन्ते मायामेतां तरन्ति ते न मां दुष्कृतिनो मूढा प्रपद्यन्ते नराधमा माययापहृता ज्ञान आसुं भावमाश्रिता चतुर्विधा भजन्ते मां जना सुकृतिनोऽर्जुन आर्तो जिज्ञासुरर्तार्थी ज्ञानी च भरतर्षभ तेषां ज्ञानी नित्ययुक्त एकभक्तिर्विशिष्यते प्रियो हि ज्ञानिनोत्यर्थम् अहं स च मम प्रिय उदारा सर्व एवैते ज्ञानी त्वात्मैव मे मतम् आस्थितः स हि युक्तात्मा माम् एवानुत्तमां गतिम् बहूनां जन्मनामन्ते ज्ञानवान् मां प्रपद्यते वासुदेव सर्वमिति स महात्मा सुदुर्लभः कामस्तेस्तेहृतज्ञाना प्रपद्यन्त्यन्यदेवता तं तं नियममास्थाय प्रकृत्या नियता स्वया
Yo yo yam yam tanum bhakta shraddhayarchitamichchiti tasya tasya jalam shraddham tameva vidadham yaham sataya shraddaya yuktas tasya ardhanam ihate labate cha tata kaman mayaiva vihitan hitan antabatu palam tesham tadbabatyalpamedasam devan devayajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mamabhutaya parampavam ajananto mamavyayam anuttamam nahang prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrita mudhoyam nabijanati loko mam ajam avyayam Vedahang samatitani vartamanani charjuna Vavishyani cha bhutani mang tu veda nakashchana Icha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata Sarva bhutani sammohang sargayanti parantapa Isham twantakatam papam Jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva mohanir mukta bhajante mandradavrata jara marana mokshaya mama shritya yatantiye te brahma tadvidukritsnam adhyatmam karma chakilam saribhutadi daivam mang sariyajnam chayevidu Prayanakale Pichamam Tevaduryukta Chetasaha Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishatsu Brahmavidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambhade Jnana Vigyan Yogo Nama Saptamodhyayaha Hari Om.
Hare Krishna. Now we'll be moving on to reading the translations. So please raise your hands if you'd like to participate in reading the English translations, and we'll do 3 verses each. You can begin.
Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth.
Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. Besides these, Almighty Armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. All created beings have their source in these 2 natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution.
O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me, as pearls are strung on a thread. O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of sun and the moon, the syllabus Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in man. I am the original fragrance of the earth, and I am the heat and fire. I am the light of all that lives, and I am the penance of all that is.
O son of Pritha, know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life which is not contrary to religious principles. O Lord of the Bharatas. Know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me.
Yes, Singh, I believe it's your turn.
It's my turn?
Yeah, if you could read 3.
Yeah. Deluded by the three modes goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who I am above the modes and inexhaustible. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me.
O best among the Bharatas, four kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desirer of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. Of these, the one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best, for I am very dear to him, and he is dear to me. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal.
After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. I am in everyone's heart as the supersoul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his face steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity.
Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme.
I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. O Arjun, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me no one knows. O Scion of Bharata, O conqueror of the foe, All living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate.
Persons who have acted piously in previous lives, and in this life whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. Those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of all the material manifestation of the demigods and of the methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death.
I want to read a few quotes from Prabhupada about reading Bhagavad Gita every day. Okay? All right. Prabhupada. It's from a letter, January 3rd, 1969. Where were you guys in 1969? Anybody know? We'll look into it later. Srila Prabhupada, I thank you so much for having nicely appreciated the Bhagavad Gita as it is. This book should be read by all of my students at least one chapter per day. And in Kirtan class, it should be discussed shloka after shloka. Practically, we have tried to explain in this book all of the basic principles of Krishna consciousness. If you can simply cram Bhagavad Gita, then you will surely become a very good preacher. The next one's from a purport from Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.23, in case anybody's taking notes. If one commits any of the above offenses to be avoided while worshiping the deity, he lists at that point, one must read at least one chapter of Bhagavad Gita. This is confirmed in the Skanda Purana, Avanti Kanda. And a third, from a conversation Prabhupada had in May of 1969. Please try to read this Bhagavad Gita as it is. It is the science of God. You will understand, you will realize, and chant this Hare Krishna mantra. This Hare Krishna mantra will cleanse your heart. And after cleansing your heart, if you read one chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you will understand gradually what is God, what you are, what is your relationship with God. And when you understand all these things and you develop your love for God, you become perfectly happy. Here's a quote from Prabhupada that was given in the Lilamrita. Anywhere Bhagavad Gita is chanted, that place becomes a tirtha, a holy place. And finally, a letter to Upendra, January 6, 1969. When you study very carefully all of the literatures which are available, especially Bhagavad Gita as it is, you will have in your grasp answers to all questions that may be put to you. Please encourage the others to read this Bhagavad Gita at least one chapter every day. Did any of those stick out? Stand out? Catch your attention? Here's a few tips. I wrote these a long time ago for reading Bhagavad Gita. Try chanting the same chapter every day for 1 month. Doing this, you'll become familiar with the shlokas and will remember them. This helps to develop a taste for chanting the Gita. 2, bring your Bhagavad Gita with you wherever you go. You never know when you'll get a chance to read your chapter. Waiting for a software program to download, chant your chapter. 3, record your chanting and listen to it at other times during the day. 4, get others to join chapter a day with you and chant your daily chapters together. 5, if you miss a day, simply continue the next day with a determined vow. And in case you wanted to know, I had this feeling, it was coming from the screen from your collective consciousness, that you wanted to know the glories of chapter 7 particularly. Was I right about that? I could feel it. This is from a book I got a long time ago called the Gita Mahatmya. It's a conversation between Parvati and Shiva. And in it, Parvati asked Lord Shiva to speak the glories of the Bhagavad Gita. So he does so through each chapter, describing an amazing occurrence from somebody chanting the Bhagavad Gita. And here it is. It's just a few paragraphs. I mean, it's actually 5. So Lord Shiva said, "My dear Parvati, now I will tell you the glories of the 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, hearing which one feels his ears have been filled with divine nectar. Patiliputra is the name of one large town, which has many large gates. In that town lived a brahmana of the name Shankukama. He had taken to the occupation of a businessman and had amassed a very large sum of money. But he had never performed any type of devotional activities, nor had he performed the necessary ritualistic performances for the sake of his forefathers. He became very rich, so much that even great kings would dine at his house. Shankukarna, who was also the most miserly of persons, but kept his wealth buried under the ground. Once, when that Brahmana was going along with his children and other relatives for the purpose of his 4th marriage, they stopped at one place to rest for the night. While he was sleeping, a snake came and bit him. When his sons and relatives realized that a snake had bitten him, they called for the doctors and mantra chanters, but no one was able to help Shankukarna, and shortly he died. After that, he attained the body of a preta sarp, a snake ghost. The only thing he was able to think about was his wealth, which was buried close to the house where he had lived. He had not even informed his own family of the whereabouts of his wealth. Even in the form of a preta sarp, he resided at the place where his wealth was buried so that no one else could take that wealth. Excuse me. After some time, he became tired, and being trapped in the form of a preta sarp, he appeared in dreams to his sons and requested them to help him. In the morning, when his lazy sons woke up, they told each other about the dream they had seen. One of his sons took a large digging instrument in his hands and went to the place the father had indicated that he was living. When he reached that place, he realized that he was not aware of the exact spot where the wealth was buried. The son was exceptionally greedy, and he searched for a long time until he came across a snake hole, which he promptly started to dig out. Shortly, a very large and fearful looking snake came out of that hole and spoke the following: "Oh, fool, who are you? Why have you come here? Who has sent you? And why are you digging at this place? Reply to my questions at once." The son replied, "I am your son. My name is Shiva. In a dream last night, I saw that there were hidden treasures buried in this place, and I came to take them." When he heard Shiva speaking that way, the Pretasarp started to laugh and said, "If you are my son, then why are you not performing the necessary rituals to free me from this hellish situation? Due to greed in my last life, I attained this body, and now you are heading in the same way." The son inquired, "My dear father, kindly tell me how you can be freed from this hellish situation." The Pretasarp said, "Not by any kind of charity, tapasya, or yajna, only by a recitation of the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita will I be able to become free from the wheel of birth and death. my dear son kindly performed the Shraddha ceremony, and on that day invite a Brahmana who is in the habit of chanting the seventh chapter of Bhagavad Gita and feed him very sumptuously. Thereafter, Shiva, along with his other brother, fulfilled the instructions of their father, and while the Brahmana was chanting the seventh chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Sankukarna gave up that frightful body of a Preta Sarp and attained a divine four-armed body. At that time, he blessed his sons and informed them where his wealth was, and then he left for Vaikuntha. Those sons, whose minds had become fixed in devotion to Lord Krishna, used that wealth for building temples, digging wells, and distributing foodstuffs. They all engaged daily in the recitation of the seventh chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And finally, they attained the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Lord Shiva said, "My dear Parvati, I have told you the wonderful glories of the seventh chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Anyone who hears this description will be freed from sinful reactions." Gia, what is your opinion?
It was really like I'd never heard of this story of Parvati and Shiva on chapter 7 and how they glorified this Bhagavad Gita on chapter 7. So it was just interesting to hear this new point of view of like hearing from Parvati and Shiva on this pastime.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing too that the power of the Bhagavad Gita is just it's palpable in one's life too. If you chant a chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day, you're smarter than the ordinary person because your intelligence becomes fortified by Krishna's very words. It's kind of what Prabhupada was saying in his quotes, right? Any other comments? Shweta Manjari.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. It was reminding me of how in the beginning he was very greedy, and that's kind of where at least I am right now. But and he after realizing the extent of his mistakes, he told his sons to invite a devotee, a brahmana, and recite the Gita, the seventh chapter specifically, and also engage in a loving exchange by giving prasadam. And I just thought that like Krishna says that, or Arjuna says to Krishna, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavad. The mind is very strong and obstinate, and that is more of a practical experience for me than the taste of Krishna consciousness because of my conditioning. So these stories like this, where you see the power of the Gita and the power of association, and the mind isn't anything compared to that, is very inspirational. It reminds you of the potency.
It really does, doesn't it? And I love your point because you were pointing to the fact that any of those qualities that we know of as our enemies, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mara, Moha, Matsarya, etc., those are seemingly impossible to dispense of. But by hearing Bhagavad Gita, as we see in this case, even though he was a greedy person and attached in so many ways, he became enlightened and liberated just by hearing the Gita. So does the whole family. Quite inspiring. Thank you, Shweta Mandari. Brajaras Bhavana.
Hare Krishna. My point is very similar to Shweta Manjari's actually. When you were reading the quotes by Srila Prabhupada, I was reflecting on the simplicity of his instructions and his reflections, where it's just read Bhagavad Gita. It just does it on its own. There's nothing else in that. And I was remembering the verse that you spoke on a couple weeks ago, Pravishta Karna Randrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dhunoti Shamalam Krishna Salilasya Yatasharat, where just by the sound incarnation of Krishna, or this Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam and his words, the holy name and so on, by that just entering our ears, it just transforms our heart, and we're able to get past all our like material um I think avarices or vices or whatnot, like greed and so on, as in this story. And so I was just reflecting on how simple it can be.
Yeah, I love that point, the simplicity. You mentioned it and then you came back to it. I always think of it Advaita Acharya and his system of worshiping the Lord was very simple. He read Bhagavad Gita. He held open class in the Gita every day. And then he also prayed with tulsi leaves and water. You can't get much more simple than that. Anybody can do that. But the greatest miracle happens, which is that the Lord appears in your life. Fantastic. Bhakta Arav.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
My point was kind of similar to Braja Rasa Bhavana Prabhu. It also happened to do with the sons. I was just amazed how the sons also became devotees by just the association of the Brahmana and the chanting of the seventh chapter. I was thinking, wow, that was so amazing. They just by doing just so little, they became pure devotees, which was so nice.
It is, that reminds me of a verse. Maybe you can look this up really fast, Brajaras Bhavan. It's in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. It's in Prabhupada's Shloka book also. And it's a discussion Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Pariksit. And the verse says that there are three types of people that get benefited when there's Krishna Katha. The person who's speaking it gets the most benefit. Then the person who's hearing it gets the second most benefit. And then who do you think the third person is, Keshav? Speaker, the listener, and who else is the third?
Third, what, Maharaj?
The third person who gets benefit. Here, you can just read the verse, read the translation.
Okay. The Ganges emanating from the toe of Lord Vishnu purifies the three worlds, the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. Similarly, when one asks questions about the pastimes and characteristics of Lord Vasudeva Krishna, three varieties of men are purified: the speaker or preacher, he who inquires, and the people in general who listen.
Yeah, thank you. There could be some collateral effect. I mean, we heard last night from a devotee whose family isn't really devotees. They're not unfavorable, but whenever she's on Zoom, they're all in the background. They can hear it and listen. So they start speaking about Krishna and asking her questions because they overhear her conversations and her involvement on the devotional Zoom calls. So it's like it leaks out. Everybody gets touched by it. I find it very inspiring to read a chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day because it's a instruction Prabhupada gave several times. He also said it about the Bhagavatam. You want to hear about that? Well, a god sister of mine who was in Hawaii said that one morning Prabhupada gave Bhagavatam class, and then afterwards he asked everyone to chant one chapter of Bhagavatam a day. And he said, if you do that, then I guarantee you'll go back home, back to Godhead. Her name's Bhavatarini. So then Prabhupada said, you will do it? And everyone cheered. And then Prabhupada asked again. He said, so you will do it? And they said, yes. And then he asked a third time if they would do it. And they all said yes. And then she looks at the camera. It's an interview of that series called Remembrances of Prabhupada. Siri, I wasn't talking to you. I don't know why you thought I was. And so then she says, and the most amazing thing about that wasn't the benediction. What do you think could have been more amazing than the benediction he gave? Tunga Vidya for 50 points.
The fact that everyone agreed?
No, the fact that they didn't do it. Because he said three times, I give you the benediction. If you chant one chapter of Bhagavatam every day, I guarantee you'll go back to Godhead. She said, that was amazing. But even more amazing was nobody did it. I mean, it's right there. The Bhagavatam's there. Everyone has it. Prabhupada gave a benediction. Similarly, about the Bhagavad Gita, he says, you'll become a great preacher. you will, what else? Any other benedictions did he give? He said, you'll have in your grasp answers to all the questions people ask you. He said, you'll read one chapter of Bhagavad, you will fully understand what is God, what you are, and what is your relationship with God by reading a chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day. And when you understand these things, you will develop your love for God and you'll become perfectly happy. And it's a simple process, but then the amazing thing is, hey, who actually does it? So if you can add something like this to your diet, your devotional diet, it becomes superfood. You'll excel in everything in your life. You'll be smarter. Your senses will be controlled. You'll be free from greed and lust, anger. Wow, amazing. Well, let's see what the timings are now. Brajaras Bhavana, please keep us on track.
Krishna Maharaj. I think we could continue our discussion, maybe do some reading, and around 3:55 we can move on to the presentation.
Okay. So how about if we, okay, this is a democracy here. No, what do you call oligarchy or whatever? Let's say a vote that, do you want to read one purport from the chapter 7, or would you like to spend the next 13 minutes or so reading from, no, 18 minutes or so reading from the Prabhupada Lilamrita? For the first one first, and we'll count them up. Okay, there's no votes. Otherwise, I got to rally my base. I can't get any votes. I didn't campaign more. Okay, so one chapter, you want to read one purport from Bhagavad Gita? Vote now. One from Tukavidya, Manya, Bhakta Arav. Our campaign is rallying, but it looks like we might fall short. And the second one is for Lilamrita. A couple paragraphs apparently. It's a dead heat. We'll read Lilamrita. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay, I think that devotees can volunteer to read. I'm going to start and I'll read 2 paragraphs. And then Brajaras Bhavana, make sure to stop us in time to do the next activity. Because like you said, this is a jam-packed session today. Fasten your safety belts. Okay, here we go. His past life was seeming further and further behind him each day. But one day after he had been in Jhansi about 6 months, a telegram arrived bringing a startling reminder of his past connections. His business in Allahabad had been burglarized. His servants had stolen all his money and medicine and anything else of value. It had been a loss of 7,000 rupees. Abai read the news, laughed, and uttered the Bhagavatam verse, Yasyahamanagrunami harishe tadhanam shanai, tato dhanam tajantyasya sojana tukadukitam. Prabhakar Mishra advised Abai to go back to Allahabad and recover what he could. No, Abai said, this is good for me. I was sad, but now one great attachment has come to an end, and my life is fully surrendered and dedicated to Sri Sri Radha Madhav. Next person can read.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Um, Abhay's son, Brindaban, soon arrived in Jhansi, requesting Abhay to come to Calcutta to revive the business. Abhay joined Day and Sons. As they sat together in Abhay's room at the Radhar Memorial, Abhay explained that he could not go back. He requested Brindavan to stay and assist him by doing typewriting, but Brindavan returned to Calcutta. From his first meeting with Prabhakar, Abhay had urged the younger educated man to take part in the League of Devotees as a full-time assistant. Although as lecturer and medical officer, Prabhakar had many duties at the university, he helped as much as he felt he could. As soon he soon became Abhay's most active assistant. Abhay appointed him secretary to the league and, after several months, initiated him. Thus Abhay became Prabhakar's spiritual master and Prabhakar became Abhay's first disciple. As a preacher, Abhay was duty-bound to accept disciples, giving them the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and Parampara instructions as he had received them from his spiritual master. Prabhakar, however, was not completely surrendered disciple, remaining independent, more like an assistant than a disciple. As university principal, Sanskrit scholar, and medical doctor, he continued to pursue his own interests also.
Srila Prabhupada, that league of devotees, I was alone. There were some students, but they were not so active. I was doing everything. I wanted to organize with Prabhakar Mishra and others, but they were not interested to devote their whole time. If you asked him to do full-time work, that he'd not do, but he was initiated. They were all learned scholars in Sanskrit, medical men. Thus, when the Gaudiya Patrika had reported the opening day ceremonies, it had referred to Prabhakar in honorable terms, as Abhay's partner in the League of Devotees, although he was actually Srila Bhaktivedanta's initiated disciple.
Bhaktivedanta Prabhu summoned the service of the Honorable Acharya Srimad Prabhakar Mishra's Shastri Kavya poetry, Vyakarna grammar, Vedanta philosophy, Tirtha, BIS MSA to perform the sacrifice. He is the principal of a college in which the Vedas and Vedangas are taught and degrees are given. He is also the assistant manager of the League of Devotees. According to time and circumstances, Abhay was engaging this young man in devotional service. Abhay was interested not in collecting disciples, but in establishing the League of Devotees, and for that he needed assistance. When I first Prabhakar Mishra, when I first met Swamiji, he said to me, "You're a Brahmana and a Prabhakar, and you are eating in a restaurant. You come with me, I will feed you myself, and I shall cook." So we would prepare prasadam and offer it to the Lord. We would take Bhagavad Prasadam together. In this way, by his mercy, I got the chance to take prasadam. He also said to me, "You become Keshahin, shaven." So I went with shaven head to the college where I taught, and everyone laughed at me. When I told Swamiji the situation, he said, "Since you're a medical officer, you can grow out your hair." When I took Diksha, Swamiji gave me my name, Acharya Prabhakar. My original name was Prabhakar Mishra, so he said, "You don't write the Mishra, you are Acharya Prabhakar." He gave me the name and offered me a tulsi mala and put tilak on my forehead and tied a kanti mala around my neck. He had registered the foundation of the League of Devotees and he appointed me as its secretary for preaching throughout the world. We used to go to the villages for Sankirtan and Bhagavad Gita Katha continuously. Abhay started a Sankirtan movement in Jhansi. At first, accompanied only by Acharya Prabhakar, he used to walk about the neighborhood of Naya Bhasti, chanting Hare Krishna. As he continued this practice, this group gradually increased until 50 people were gathering regularly to go on parikrama, chant together, and visit temples. Afterwards, they would gather at the Radha Memorial for an evening lecture. When Abai would go out to preach in the nearby villages, he would usually be accompanied by whatever league members were free. Once he went with Acharya Prabhakar on Padayatra, traveling on foot and preaching, to Chirgaon, some 20 miles from Jhansi. In Chirgaon, there lived a nationally known poet, Maithili Saran Gupta, who received Abai and his disciple at his home for dinner. Abai told his host that since he was an accomplished poet, he should write something glorifying Krishna, and the poet agreed. After preaching in Chirgaon, Abai and Prabhakar returned to Jhansi, spending one day in each of the 5 villages along the way. At night, the villagers would gather and Abhay would lead Kirtana. He explained to Prabhakar that although most of these simple farmers were not scholars in Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, they could achieve the highest spiritual benefit simply by Kirtana. Abhay was well received by the villagers, who begged him to return soon, but to give them notice next time so that they could prepare a proper reception.
While preaching locally, Abhay was simultaneously working to give an international scope to his League of Devotees. He wrote to government agencies asking them to help him expand his genuine educational project, and he also tried to recruit preachers from amongst his friends. He wrote to his old college friend, classmate, Rupen Mitra in Calcutta, inviting him to join in worldwide missionary activities. My mission desires to train up 40 trainees, and I have asked help from the government for this useful educational purpose. I want that you may be one of the trainees in this regard, and you can ask Karti Dada to join us in this spirit. You will know from papers sent to how we live and what we do, and thus you can make up your mind whether it is possible for you to join us. The first thing is we want to train up some retired men in Vanaprastha life and some young men in Brahmacharya life. I have no inclination for sannyas life, which is rather a difficult job for the fallen people of this age. The so-called sannyasis in red garments have spoiled the good name of such order of life. Abhay also asked Rupain, kindly let me know the charges of this advertisement in English and vernacular papers of Calcutta.
Are you there?
My mission, wait, where should I read from?
From Wanted.
Okay. Wanted candidates from any nationality to qualify themselves as real Brahmins for preaching the teachings of Bhagavad Gita for all practical purposes throughout the world. Deserving candidates will be provided with free boarding and lodging. Apply. A.C. Bhaktivedanta, founder and secretary of the League of Devotees. Bharti Bhavan, P.O., Jhansi, UP. Abhay wanted a deed stating that the Bharati Bhavan belonged to the League of Devotees. So far, he had only a promise. Thinking of Jhansi as a permanent headquarters, he wanted a written commitment. When he approached Reva Sankar Bhayal for a deed of gift, Mr. Bhayal gave Abhay a form requesting him to pay 500 rupees to register the buildings. But since Abhay had just suffered a loss of 7,000 rupees in Allahabad and had recently spent 3,000 rupees in preaching, much of it going towards the opening day festival, he found himself unable to raise even 500 rupees. Acharya Prabhakar, despite his academic position, had very little money and was being subsidized by his parents with 3 rupees a day. Most of Abhai's congregation, especially the students, were in similar position. Mr. Bhayal's request for 500 rupees didn't seem urgent, nor did he say what would happen if Abhay couldn't pay. But he soon made another request. Mr. Abhay Charan Dey should buy the Bharati Bhavan for 5,000 rupees.
What year is that, Brajaras Bhavana?
Let me find out.
I'm going to find out how much 7,000 rupees would be in US dollars today. And if Chat GPT can't tell me, I'm going to throw my phone away.
1952.
In today's US dollars, how much would 7,000 rupees be in 1952? In 1952, the exchange rate was approximately 4.76 Indian rupees per US dollar. Therefore, 7,000 in 1952 is equivalent to about 1,470 US dollars. To determine the value of 1,470 dollars from 1952 in today's dollars, 2025, we can use the US inflation rate between 1952 and 2025. The cumulative inflation rate has been approximately 1,098%. Huh? Meaning that prices have increased about 11.99 times over this period. Applying this inflation factor, $1,470 in 1952 is equivalent to 17,625 in 2025, as calculated by 1,470.59 times 11.99, roughly 17,625 in US dollars. There's got to be some other factors as well, but at least I don't have to throw my phone away. That's one good thing. Okay, good boy. So now, Brajaras Bhavana, what do you have in store for us?
Krishna Maharaj, we thought of a topic beforehand related to doubts, and yeah, you very wonderfully organized this presentation that deep dives into one of the verses from the Bhagavatam that talks about this. And so our plan is maybe we'll have you talk about it a little bit, and then we'll go into some smaller rooms to discuss further based on how much time we have, and then also come back and meet again and recap.
Okay, sounds like a good plan. I'd like to thank Bhaktin Manya for creating the slides from the notes that Brajaras Bhavana sent that I had given him. Thank you, Manya, for doing such a nice job. So we heard just this morning, Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, that from the verse Tasmat Gurum Prapadyeta Jignasu Shre Uttamam Shabde Paritanishnatam Brahman Upashramashrayam. We had a panel of devotees who had memorized quite a few verses, and they were being quizzed on them. And one of the verses is the one I just quoted from the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, starts with the word therefore, and it gives qualifications of a spiritual master, and one of them is Shabde Paritanishnatam. From Prabhupada's translation of that, he said, one who has taken a dip in the ocean of transcendental knowledge. So then one of the persons who was quizzing the panelists had asked, according to our acharyas, why is it important to have a spiritual master who knows Shastra? And one of the poignant answers is that it's the duty of a teacher to remove doubts. And we know even in Bhagavad Gita that Krishna, when speaking to Arjuna, detected that he had doubts. And Prabhupada comments in his purport that doubts are like demons. And if one can meet somebody who can clear one's doubts, then one's path is clear. And therefore, it's important to be able to, when teaching others, be able to use logic and Shastra in order to remove doubts so that people can unabatedly open their hearts and serve Krishna. Now, why does this say doubt your way to the perfect path? Because when Brajaras Bhavana Prabhu asked me to give a few short comments about doubts, he mentioned that everyone may have doubts when they start the process of Krishna consciousness, and they may have some ongoing doubts and lingering doubts. You name the adjective, and we can add it to the word doubts. And so he thought it would be a great topic to discuss. So I immediately thought, when he asked me to say a few things, about a profound statement that Kapila Dev makes to his mother, Devahuti. And here it is at 3:26:30. Samshayota viparyaso nishchaya smritarevacha swapa ityuchate budher lakshanam ritata pratak. Doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory, and sleep, as determined by their different functions, are said to be the distinct characteristics of intelligence. So just take a moment to notice that one of the functions of the intelligence is to doubt. And that means that you have to compare one thing to another. And if you're not quite sure and you have a doubt, then there's a way in which you can sort it out. And in fact, one of my favorite verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita is in the Adi Lila, and it's mentioned by Kaviraj Goswami. Siddhanta Bolya Chitanakara Alash, Iha Hoti Krishna Lagit Sudrid Manash. And what he says here is that one shouldn't be lazy in removing doubts. You should discuss topics even if they seem a little bit difficult to discuss, because when you're able to remove your doubts, which brings you to a siddhanta, which means a clear understanding of a topic, then you can proceed with dridhavrata and dridhamana. Your mind can be very fixed on the task at hand. Now I've excerpted from the Prabhupada's purport some of the key phrases, which, when I've completed them all, really makes up most of the purport. So this is one that we just discussed, but it's worth repeating because it's the main theme. Doubt is one of the important functions of the intelligence. So if someone doubts, it doesn't mean that you're unfaithful. It just means you're using your intelligence to come to a siddhanta so you can clearly understand something. But you should use your questioning power to ask an appropriate person or persons how to come to a clear understanding of a topic so you can remove your doubt. So, point is, it's not bad to doubt, it's natural. Doubt is one. Blind acceptance of something does not give evidence of intelligence, which makes sense since it's one of the functions of intelligence. And if you have no doubts, remember when Lord Chaitanya was sitting listening to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya for 7 days, and Sarvabhauma said, "Don't you have any doubts about what I'm saying?" Because it's natural that a student would ask questions. If you're taking music lessons, you're like, "How do I do this? How's that?" You have to ask questions. So just blind acceptance doesn't show evidence of intelligence. And by the way, with Lord Chaitanya, actually, he understood perfectly what the Vedanta Sutra meant, but he told Sarvabhauma, whatever you're saying is blocking the meaning, just like clouds block the sun. So to cultivate intelligence, one should be doubtful in the beginning. Is that helpful? A relief? Maybe so. And means, with a long pause, means, please change the slide. By intelligence only, one can understand things as they are. And I like the use of that magnifying glass. So oftentimes, if we look carefully into something, look at more closely, we can come to a Siddhanta. Prabhupada continues, by intelligence only can one understand whether or not he is the body. That's interesting also, because in the verse, in the second canto, second chapter, 35th verse, Shukadev Goswami says that you can use your intelligence to come to a conclusion that you're not your body, and Prabhupada demonstrates how to do that in his purport. So intelligence is meant for that. Am I my body? Am I not my body? The intelligence empowered by Krishna is so helpful that you can actually come to see that you're not your body just by using your intelligence. Prabhupada, the study to determine whether one's identity is spiritual or material begins in doubt, which means you have to ask some kind of questions like, am I or am I not? And then receive the answers. Doubting is not favorable after one determines an authorized source of knowledge. And this is the last slide. So the point is, using the intelligence to overcome doubts, to answer pressing questions is important. And in the sense of doubting, meaning that one doubts the process itself, once one is able to determine an authorized source of knowledge, doubting does not become helpful. In other words, doubting helps us triangulate till we come to a source that we can trust. So if you don't have a source that you can trust, and you don't have axiomatic truth, meaning it's truth that's self-luminous and that you don't question because you trust the source, then you can't make progress not only in Krishna consciousness, but any science. If you go into any of your classes in high school or university, or whatever grade you may be in, and the teacher brings out a textbook and says, today we're going to study history. They say, oh, I don't believe anything in this book. You'll probably be not very productive in the class, or in chemistry, or in geometry. Solve for, here, solve for this. There's nothing, no X to solve for. So you have to have axiomatic knowledge that comes from a trusted source. Otherwise, you get what's called infinite regress. If you don't trust anything or anyone and it keeps going back and back and back, you'll never come to any conclusion whatsoever. And then your life becomes a series of absurdities. So this is the one exception, that once you can determine that the source is valid, like you find a good doctor and you've verified that the doctor has been vetted, has gone to the proper schools, and so forth, then you can't doubt the prescription. You just take it. So that's a preamble to a discussion, and that Rajaras Bhavana will tell you more about.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. Now we're just going to be assigning you to some breakout rooms, and you'll have a breakout room leader that will facilitate the discussion. We will take 10 minutes, and then we'll be back here at 4:20 to share what we've learned from those rooms. And so please feel free to join, and one of us will be in the main room as well in case you end up dropping off. Hare Krishna.
Arushi, do you need help getting in a room? Hare Krishna, everyone.
Everyone,
From your breakout rooms. We hope you had a good discussion. And before we move on to like the general reflections, why don't we hear three things, or we'll take three total reflections of what you like that maybe someone shared in your group. So please raise your hand if you have something. Marge, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just heard something really interesting. The question that Wait, as the room leader, asked was, which is worse, blind faith or blind doubt? And Bhakta Arav said, better to have blind faith than to have blind doubt, because if he said most people have blind doubt and they just out of hand reject Bhagavad Gita. But let's say you have blind faith and you accept it. At least you got the Bhagavad Gita. It reminded me of Pascal's wager that if you have faith in God, then what do you have to lose? Because if you're wrong, then you're like everybody else. But if other people are wrong and they doubt God, then they'll lose their opportunity. So that was profound. But overall, the experience was really nice to have the room. Om Tat Sat.
Thank you so much, Marge, for sharing that. And that was a great point, Bhakta Arav. And we'll take two more before we move on to general reflections. Manya?
Hey, Krishna. Firstly, I just want to say we had a little icebreaker in our group asking what our favorite vegetable was, and all of us said potato. So we love potatoes in our group. But we also had the question of which is better, blind faith and blind doubt. And I gained a lot from this because I thought, blind faith is worse because faith is like where you put your heart into, and why would you put your heart into something that you don't even trust? Um, and then Chaitanya Nityanam was saying in our group that kind of similar to what you were saying, are that blind doubt is continuously asking like, why this, why that? And if you keep going on in your life asking why this, why that, it's just kind of like you're nowhere, like you're not on one side nor on either, you're just kind of constantly questioning in the wrong way. So I thought that was nice. Yeah.
That's really nice. Thank you, Manya. And lastly, Bradras. Bhavana.
First, I would say our group was very diverse. Amodavardhan mentioned this, where we had people from like I think four different cities, and like we had an 8-year-old and also like a 22-year-old. So it was a very interesting kind of like discussion that we were having. And again, with this in my group, actually, a lot of us were leaning towards blind faith because it felt like it was kind of immature to to have blind faith because you're not able to really choose the right things. And so that was a very interesting thing. I think Mukunda mentioned that if he's here. Yeah, Mukunda and Vrinda over there. Yeah, so they mentioned um, how blind faith kind of is almost like a form of like no intelligence because you're not doubting and questioning to begin with.
That's a great point. Thank you, Bradras, Bhavana, and Mukunda for sharing that. And now we would go on, but we just have 5 minutes left. So, Amarj, if you'd like to lead in closing overall reflections or whatever you'd like.
Okay, let's do that. So now moving away from the topic that we were focused on, open forum for the next 4.5 minutes that any realizations from your life, like what are you seeing, feeling, hearing? What do you like? What do you hate? Sharing means caring. Is helpful to hear from others what's going on. Sharing means caring. Sweta Manjari.
Hey Krishna Guru, there's recently there was she's a very esteemed devotee in our congregation. Radha Gokulakananda's first pujaris, her whole life is dedicated to service. Mother Krishna Priya, she left her body the day before Gaur Purnima, and it's very sudden. 1 week she was okay, and the next week she wasn't, and the next week we were having her memorial. But she was actually at the hospital on my campus, and also where I happened to work. So I was able to visit her, And I brought her two things. One was a 2024 calendar, Radha Golokananda, so she could see the pictures. And the second was like a pocketbook of Bhagavad Gita and actually a science of self-realization. And when I brought her these things, she said a few things to me that I think will stick with me for a lifetime. Hopefully more than that. But the first thing she said about the calendar of Radha Golokananda, she actually asked me to put everything on a table that was a little bit far away from her. And she said about the calendar, she said, Shweta Mantri, there comes a time where the beauty of the lordships has to be in your heart. And I found that to be so powerful because she was a living example of that. And um, she's right. Like, there has to be a time where I go so deep that, like, when I close my eyes and reflect in my heart, like, what I see is Radha Golokananda. And then secondly, the Bhagavad Gita and the Science of Self-Realization, she said, I can look it on my phone, so I don't have to take up space by putting it on the bed. But please leave it here so that I can give it to those who come here and are doing service, to the healthcare workers. And so I left those books. And then a week later, after she left her body, at the memorial service, her nurse came. And this nurse broke all the hospital rules. You're only supposed to have two guests in the hospital at a time. I think there were 40 plus devotees in the room, all chanting for her on the day she left her body. And he said that like I don't care if I get fired. Like this is important. And I found out that SSR and Bhagavad Gita went to him, and he came and he honored prasadam, and anyways, I just thought like of the power of one such a pure devotee like Mother Krishna Priya, and her living the instructions by example, and how that potency and power and that attitude of service, even while she was like she left her body like 4 or 5 days later. But even until the very end, she had such an attitude of service of let me just give this knowledge. So it inspired me as someone who has a healthy body and in a young age of like I need to get my perspective straight and my things in order because that's what a glorious life and a glorious departure looks like.
Thank you so much, Shweta Mundry. Fantastic. Ishika for the close.
Maharaj, I actually had a question relating to the topic we had today.
Sure.
So we talked about, yeah, in the topic we had, it was about doubt, and Kapil Muni mentioned how doubt is intelligence. But in my personal life, instead of doubting others, I doubt myself a lot. So that just provokes a lot of negative thoughts in me, and I like don't believe in myself then. So Maharaj, how do you like deal with that? And is that intelligence or yeah?
There can be other psychological conditions that describe that feeling. And it's really hard to see ourselves the way we are. For instance, if you've ever listened to a recording of your own voice and been a little put off by it, you can imagine how and other people are going, your voice is fine, your voice is fine. And there's a way that it's hard, self-observation is a little difficult and it's kind of complicated. Solutions have to do with having good mentors, coaches, because that's one of the reasons people get coaches and trainers in sports and things like that is because we can't really see what we're doing wrong or how we are and what we're doing right. So it's helpful to have mentors around us who know how to encourage us and that having friends in Krishna consciousness who we can go to and say, "Am I all right? What do you think?" And they can give you an honest answer and say, "Yeah, you're doing great. I mean, look at what you've got," and help you do an inventory of what's going right. I do it all the time because I feel, so many things going on and thinking, "Oh, I missed on this one, that one," and it starts to add up and it can be very pressing. So if you can have those that know you enough, Guya Makyati Prichiti, you can go to and tell them, like, this is how I'm feeling. What do you think of me? And they can say, like, hey, you're great. Or it's fine. Or here's just a slight improvement you can make so that you can have some objectivity. That's really helpful because devotional service is team sport. And it's good to have a lot of coaches that can help you. That's my experience. And I totally relate to what you're saying. Okay, Brajaras Bhavana. You want me to close it? Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Golokananda, Shri Jagannath Baladev, Subhadraji, Shri Shri Gaurnitai. If you so desire, please bless and empower everyone who joined Youth Jam today, everyone who thought about joining Youth Jam, those who forgot and slept through it, those who want to come to Youth Jam in the future who haven't heard about it, that they may always have an attraction for chanting the holy names, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, being in the association of good-hearted, sincere devotees, and may they all be empowered to be nice to all living entities, regardless of the situation. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare
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 Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Kripa Sindhave Chapatitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Madhuri Saki, you got to go to bed. It's past 12. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for joining Youth Jam, and we look forward to seeing you next week at 3 p.m. PST. Very well.